Welcome everybody to Fluent and Chill. I'm anthonyk of Sports Fluent. I'm here as always with my man J Dub from Chilltown Hoops.
What's
Jay,
up?
how you doing?
What's going on, brother?
You know, this is the basketball edition,
Mhm.
and on Fridays we're gonna have the football edition. And before we jump into, last week we talked about the Eastern Conference and we went team by team,
Mhm.
and we're gonna do that this week for the West. But before we do that, there was a trade. But even before we talk about the trade, I want to ask you a question.
Mhm.
Summer League started,
Mhm.
and everybody loves Summer League because you got your draft picks. You're so excited to see how they do. And then they get out on the court and they're with a bunch of other Summer League players, and
Mhm.
everybody looks really good. And
Mhm.
you get really excited. Do you hold a lot of weight with, when you see your first round draft pick go, 20, 10, and 5? Do you hold a lot of weight to that, or do you kind of take it with a grain of salt because it is Summer League? Everyone is just trying to kind of figure things out a little bit, and the talent level that they're playing against, look, let's be honest, it's not as high as what they're going to play in the NBA on a daily kind of grind. Or do you say, hey, if they can make it in Summer League, I feel good about them?
Well, it depends on who we're talking about here, because the summer league is a measuring stick for free agents. These guys who have not been drafted or who have been drafted in the second round, these are the guys who are trying to stick. These are the guys who are trying to prove that they can make a squad. It's obvious that they can play at that level because these second round picks and these free agents that have been around for 2-3 years, they're trying to stick. It's not that it's obvious that they're trying to play at this, that they can play at this level. It's more they're trying to stick. But when I see the rooks, like for example the kid from Golden State, Kuminga, I can look at him and tell I think he's going to be a really good pro. I felt the same way about Jason Tatum when I saw him in 2017. He's going to be a really good pro. And then there are guys that I look at, and not just the eye test. I'm looking at their motor. I'm looking at their skill set. I'm looking at how they, not with the eye test, I'm sorry. I'm looking at their skill set. I'm looking at how they handle themselves. And I get a lot of bad vibes from guys. Like, for example, I don't think Obi Toppin is going to be in the league in 5 years. I think he's going to be out the league in 5 years. I think he's Kenny Walker 2.0. I think he's Kenny Skywalker. He doesn't look to me like he works on his game. He looks like he shows up, and the stuff that he works on, he's already good at that stuff. He doesn't look to me like he works on anything that he's not good at. And he doesn't seem to be improving. Same thing with the free agent that they had, Frank, I can't say his last name for the life of me, the Euro.
Tskavili?
Yeah, that's him.
I think I said it wrong, but yeah.
I watched him in Summer League, and I could tell he wasn't working on his game, and he wasn't working to improve his game. Summer League is a measuring stick, again, for guys who are lower level draft picks and free agents who are trying to stick. The guys who already are first round picks, those guys I can tell whether or not this guy's going to be a good pro or not. So that's what that's my gauge for Summer League. Now, like I said, I watched Jason Tatum in 2017, and I'm looking at this guy going, he got 20 a game written all over him. He's going to be a really good pro. And then there are other guys that I just get bad vibes from because I can tell they don't work on the things that they're not good at. And this is a great time to do that, and they're not doing it. And
it's interesting that you said that because you and I had the conversation about NFL preseason,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of the things that I talked about in that conversation, I use in Summer League. Mm-hmm. Look, there's the stats are I put less into the stats of what they're doing because whether it's rotations, minutes, chemistry, there's too many variables for that. Obviously, they need to do something, but I look at part of it's the eye test, right? But I look at footwork. I look at I said this to you before, body language. Like if they miss a couple of shots, do they get down on themselves,
mm-hmm.
right? Because you need to have almost a ridiculous confidence that I missed 3-4 in a row. Yeah, I'm going to get the next one. And that you have to have that mentality because
mm-hmm.
if not, I'm not going to pick on Ben Simmons, right. But you get into that Ben Simmons thing where, oh my God, I can't shoot. So in a game, so I'm not gonna, and you
mm-hmm.
can't have that mentality.
Right.
And so that's what I look at. And then to your point about working on stuff, I look from game to game. So player A had 5 turnovers in the first game because he was sloppy with his ball handling. Did he correct that? Did he come back out and do the same kind of plays that caused him to have those turnovers in the first time? Or did you see him, oh, look, he tightened that up. He made, instead of trying to dribble out of a double team, he found a way to find the open man and pass out of a double team. And you're like, oh, he paid attention. He watched that tape. So those are the things more, not that I don't look at stats, but I look at those in Summer League more than stats.
Now, I will tell you this, Tone. I will say that, like we talked about a day ago, that when you talk about Summer League, I do equate it to preseason football because you're going against free agents. You're going against second-round picks. These aren't the A and B guys in the league. These are guys. So on one hand, it might look like it's a difficult gauge when you rating these guys. But on the other hand, you can look at a guy and tell if he can play or not.
Right.
You can look at a guy and go, okay, this guy's got the goods, and I can tell that he's going to be really good. And you can look at this guy and go, yeah, I don't see what you're looking at. I'm trying to see what you're looking at, but I can't see it.
We had a big signing in the NBA, and I'm not surprised that they extended Joel Embiid because, let's be honest, he's the franchise. And if the 76ers could move Ben Simmons, I think they make that trade. I think they're asking too much for him, but he's clearly on the block. They're going to build around Joel Embiid. Mm-hmm. When you saw that signing come through, what was your first thought?
I wasn't surprised at all. That's first of all. And number two, what other option do they have? This is their franchise player. This is the guy who they're building their unit around. I mean, he was second in the league in MVP votes last year. Before he got hurt, he was 30-11. And he probably would have won the league MVP. He's clearly their future. He's 27 years old. So he's clearly their future. Now, I get he's been beat up and his availability sometimes is in question. All right, well, what's plan B if that's not it? You can't have a franchise player and then not pay him. I mean, we saw that happen. You were around. We saw that happen 25 years ago when Orlando screwed around with Shaq, and he walked right out the front door, and it took them years to recover from that. So when you're talking about a guy like Joel Embiid, who is a franchise player, and he might not be the consummate big and the consummate 5-man because the game has changed, but he's absolutely, in my opinion, a top 10 player. He's a franchise player, and they absolutely did the right thing in re-signing him. Now, when you talk about moving on from Ben Simmons, I don't have an issue with that. I'm not ready to move on from him yet, but I think that relationship is fractured, and I think it's beyond repair. Even though, you can look at it, Tone, like a kid and just let this kid throw a tantrum, let him kick and scream. And what happens when a kid throws a tantrum and kicks and screams? Eventually he'll go to sleep, and he'll get over it. And we can take that approach.
Well, it depends. It depends how much attention you give them. If you just let them do it, they eventually stop because I'm trying to get attention. Right. And if you don't give them that attention, well, then they're like, oh, that didn't work. Let me try something else.
Now it's completely different if you chastising this kid and he throws a tantrum, which is what happened with Ben Simmons. And now we got a guy who, he's lost trust in the organization. That his confidence was already shaken. And now the franchise, you got Doc Rivers in post-game meetings talking negatively about him, and he's on the trading block. So, of course, he's thinking about not being there anymore. So, with that being said, I think that relationship is fractured beyond repair. I was not ready to give up on him. I wanted to give him one more season, but I think that relationship is fractured beyond repair.
So a couple of things, so many things you said there. So one, yes, the Joel Embiid, I think he does get criticized, rightly or wrongly, like for his diet/work ethic. Mm-hmm. But you brought up, I think you brought up the perfect comparison. If they don't extend him, trust me, we talked about this last week. There's someone from another team, whether it be a player, an exec, which it shouldn't be, whispering in his ear. You're right, there's a Jerry West whispering in Shaq's ear saying, hey, it's beautiful over here in LA. Every big in the Hall of Fame seems to have come through LA at some point. Think about all the greatest of all time, right? Kareem, Wilt, they all played Shaq, they all played in LA. Mm-hmm. So there's someone talking in Embiid's ear. So if they don't sign him, you're right, they probably lose him. I agree with you. I think, one, they hurt themselves by talking poorly about Ben Simmons, because if you're going to ask for the moon and the stars and the sky, you can't be saying this bad, negative things about that player, because you're just hurting his trade value. So I think it's interesting that I think they talked poorly about him because they figured they were going to trade him.
Mhm.
But by talking poorly about him, they decreased his trade value, which only hurt them. I would love to see a front court, as as us old guys say, the 4-5 of
Mhm.
Ben Simmons and Embiid. I'd like to see them as a front court,
Mhm.
and just see what happens. And Doc, listen, I have my criticisms of Doc as a coach, but I think that's what he needs to do, is figure out the 1, 2, 3, the wings. Let Embiid and Simmons figure it out as the two bigs, because I think their offense and defense and playmaking ability combined. Is there a better 4-5? Is there a better front court combo, if that's what they were to do, than those two guys?
And they just extended him too, Tone. So it's not like it's a situation where they were on the fence about him. They just extended him, which means that he was clearly in their future plans. So because he was in their future plans, why are you giving up on him so fast?
You know why? Because the narrative that came out of the playoffs. That's why. And I think they're succumbing to the pressures of the fans, the media, maybe something they saw in the playoffs where, like, maybe we can't change this. And you should never listen. As a fan, some days, you should never listen to us.
Absolutely not.
You should never listen to our narratives, because
What?
we're not sitting there every day. We don't know the locker room. We're not at practice every day. Listen, I have some great ideas, but in reality, would they work? I don't know. You're there every day. You've got professionals getting paid to make these decisions. Listen to them. Listen to them.
Right.
So Ben Simmons doesn't look like he's going to get traded. To a player that did get traded, Eric Bledsoe gets shipped to the Clippers for Rajon Rondo and Patrick Beverley. Did the Clippers need because what is Bledsoe? Bledsoe's a scorer, but he's not going to give you the same defensive intensity as Patrick Beverley does. I think Rondo was probably just a throw in there. They brought him in. They thought that he could be that veteran guy, do what he did for the Lakers the year before. Did they need the third scorer? Does this trade make sense to you? Does it make the Clippers better? Does it make them a deeper run? Does it make them more of a threat in the Western Conference?
Well, what this does for what happened to Bledsoe? How can I best put this? Okay, so Bledsoe's detriment was Drew Holiday, because him being traded for Drew Holiday, because essentially that was the same unit that was brought back with minor tinkers to the roster. So you take Bledsoe off that roster and you put Drew Holiday in. You take and you add Bobby Portis to that roster, and then you trade for PJ Tucker later on. But ultimately, switching out Bledsoe for Drew Holiday, and now Drew Holiday is a better player. Not only is he a better player, he's better at what you do. He does the same thing, except he's better at it. And they end up winning the NBA championship. So now what that does is that makes other teams question, well, if we're trading for him and we're trying to win it, is he our guy? Because a championship team let him go. And in the process of them letting him go, they traded for another guy who does the same thing that he does. He just does it better. So what makes us think that he's going to get onto our unit and flourish? So I think Bledsoe is 31 years old. He is who he is. It's not like you're going to see an improvement from Bledsoe. Bledsoe is a D3 guy. He was an all-league defender, first-team all-league defense. I think he was a better offensive player than Pat Beverley. So yeah. I think they improve in that aspect. Defense, I think they're pretty even. I don't know how much he's going to help them offensively, because Bledsoe is not the guy that I'm thinking, okay, we're going to get more firepower with Bledsoe. And the reason why I say that is exactly because what I just said. He gets off that Milwaukee unit. Drew Holiday gets on that unit and does the same thing that he does, except he's better. So now you got to go to the Clippers, who's also a high-powered offense, and you got to show that you can at least sustain being a scorer. You don't even have to be an elite scorer. You have to show that you can at least sustain being a scorer. So I can't really say that the Clippers won this trade. I think it opened up some cap space for Memphis, and I don't think Rondo leaves there. I think that he's still in Memphis. I think he plays behind Ja, and I think he helps Ja tremendously. What that reminds me of, that situation reminds me of when he was in New Orleans with Drew Holiday, with Anthony Davis, and how he mentored those young guys and how much better they got because of Rondo. So I don't think I don't think Memphis buys him out. I think he plays there, and I think he helps Ja tremendously.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'm going to start on the Memphis side and say that's, I think, exactly what Ja needs is that veteran point guard who's, let's be honest, from the outside looking in, everyone thinks Rondo's like really kind of rough around the edges. But talk to anybody in the league, he's a good team guy. He helps. He helps you. He makes you better as a player because of those things. He's going to be whispering in Ja's ear more defensively. I think Ja's very gifted offensively. And I think Rondo's going to give him some of those defensive tips where that grittiness, that toughness, that if Ja gets a little bit of it, I like Ja. I'm very high on Ja, by the way. He's, he was on my list when I was like, I want to find a new young player to be my favorite. He was on my top 5 list of ones to pick. So I like him a lot. On the flip side, and here's the thing, I don't think he's the right guy to do this, but I think the Clippers are looking for someone who can pick up a little bit, because listen, Beverly wasn't that guy, to pick up some of the offensive burden, because I think, one, Kawhi, right, how healthy does he come back?
I don't think he plays this season, Tone. I think he's out.
So if he's out this season, or if he comes back, whether he comes, I thought maybe half the season, but let's say he misses the whole season. Who's going to pick up that offensive slack for Kawhi? And when he does come back, let's be honest, he's not. They pushed him. The Clippers did. When you saw what he did in Toronto, I think he played 60 games, and he looked fresh. Like, even though he's a little banged up, everybody is, but he was really fresh for that playoff run that Toronto had. And then his years with the Clippers, he played more minutes, more games, didn't take as much of that load management that he was getting criticized for. But I think they realized that was a mistake. Kawhi is a great player, but he is not a 82 game, right? He's not going to break Will Chamberlain's 48.5 minutes per game streak anytime soon.
If you're dependent on that, you're in trouble, because that's not trouble.
So I think that they're tinkering to be like, hey, let's get some of that offensive firepower back. Now, this might be the first piece of many to kind of say, hey, for this, let's get through this year. If Kawhi does miss the entire season, let's get through this year. Kawhi comes back. Let's bet on him playing 65 games. And who's going to pick up that offensive slack when he's not there? And I think that's what they're looking towards. Whether it's the right decision or not, I don't think it is, but let's see how it goes.
Now, I will tell you this, Tone. Bledsoe has got one more year left on his deal, and he's only guaranteed, I think, $3.9 or $4 million out of the $19 million, which helps the Clippers tremendously. Now, the reason why I'm thinking Leonard doesn't play this season is because if you bring him in, let's say we get him in right after the All-Star break, right around like late February, early March.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
So let's say you get him in there and you lose him again. So now, not only did you lose him for this season, you lose him for next season too. And you just extended him. So that's 2 years that we wasted with this guy who, like you just said, he's not exactly the most stable guy physically. So I'd be really surprised if he played this season. I'd be really surprised.
Okay. We're going to stick in the Western Conference. So last week we started at the bottom. Now we're here. We started at the bottom and we worked our way up. We're going to do this. We're going to do the same with the West, just how they finished last year. So again, the bottom 5 was Houston, OKC, Minnesota, Sacramento, New Orleans. Of those teams, did Houston, I'm going to start with the bottom 3, Houston, OKC, or Minnesota do enough that you see them jumping up from that kind of out of the playing game, I guess, situation?
I don't think Houston is there yet, but I do think that they will improve. I think this kid Green is going to help John Wall tremendously, because last season, John Wall, he was there to prove that he could hold up, because this is a guy who had been out for 2 seasons. So last season was just for him to prove that he could hold up. Now he's getting Green in, who is a tremendous athlete. And I think that's going to help his game tremendously, because he can get back to being the distributor that he was. Because when he was playing in Washington, he was an 18-9 guy. He was one of the best distributors in the game. And it looks to me like that athleticism with John Wall is still there. It's not like it's gone. It looks like it's still there. And they're going to get Wood back. He's going to be healthy. That's going to be big for them, getting Daniel House more minutes. So I think they're going to be better than what they were last year. I don't know if they're a playoff team. I don't think that I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah.
But I think they'll be better.
Yeah. And let's say this. I think people forget Houston started with PJ Tucker and James Harden still on that team. And what the whole Harden saga to get himself traded to Brooklyn, that played a role in their record, and they never really kind of recovered because then it was just everybody was angry, everybody was complaining. It's between what happened with the Texans and the Rockets, it was a bad year in Houston for sports. So I get it.
Cousin was on that team too, by the way.
And Boogie, yeah, that's right. Yes. So there's a lot of turnover, a lot of turmoil. So yeah, I don't think they can do worse, and I think you're right. I think they've brought in the pieces. OKC's got another, 400 draft picks over the next couple of years. Is there enough there to at least make a push?
Also, I love what they're doing with Shea. And the reason why I love what they're doing with Shea, because he's like Embiid. He's their franchise. He's the guy that they're building it around. So what they have to do is they have to show him this is the place where you want to be. And we're going to build this around you, and we're going to make the right decisions. So I'm not sure about Giddey. I watched him in the summer league, and Australian guys are really tough. Historically, Australian guys have been tough. Luke Longley, Matt Delanadova, guys like that. Those are tough guys. He looks a little soft to me. So I'm not sold on what they're doing with him. I love Lou Dort.
I was going to bring him up.
Lou Dort reminds me, he looks like he could be a better version of Sidney Moncrief. That's what he looks like to me. Now
that's a big compliment. That's a big compliment.
That's what he looks like. He looks like he could be a better version of Sidney Moncrief to me, because as a perimeter defender, he's all over you, and he's developing his mid-range game. He's a really good athlete. I'm digging everything about him. The thing about Oklahoma City and New Orleans, which is the same thing, you have to build through the draft.
Yeah.
And when you're building through the draft, and like you just said, Oklahoma City got, I think, before this draft, they had over the next 5 years, they have 14 ones. So with those 14 ones, I know that sounds ridiculous. With those 14 ones, we can't get this wrong. Right. We have to get this right, because this is a situation very much like Minnesota. Losing our first round picks or getting our first picks wrong, that could set us back years, because we're not a destination place. We're not a place where guys are going, okay, I want to go play in Oklahoma City. No, nobody wants to come to Oklahoma City. So we got to get it right in trades, and we got to get it right in the draft. And I think what they're doing in Oklahoma City with building around Shea, I think that they're on the right track to becoming a playoff team again. I think they're on the right track.
If you identify and you don't have this false sense of we can attract free agents, you understand, look, we got to build through the draft. You have to put all your eggs, unfortunately, in that basket. That's what they've done. They said, look, we're going to take these draft picks and we're going to build our team that way. And hopefully they've got the commitment of Shea and others to say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. We're thinking long term. Mm-hmm. They need to do that. They also need consistency with coaching, training staff, those types of developmental people, because when you have that many first round draft picks, your developmental program is going to have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Because you're right, if you get it wrong, but you look at the not people give them enough credit for this. Look at the Golden State Warriors. Golden State was not a destination that free agents, it's nice, it's in California, but it still wasn't, looked at as a, hey, let's go to Golden State. I want to go there. But when they hit it on the draft, Curry, Clay, Draymond, and people want to call them a super team because they have all these great players. Well, hold on. They drafted those guys. They developed those guys. They gave those guys an opportunity and a system to become what they are. So Oklahoma City has that same type of potential, is that they can do that. And look, I'm not saying they should do this, but they can take a couple of risks, right? If they miss on one or two because they have so many, that's okay, because you might find that diamond in the rough. You might find that Draymond Green that everyone was like, oh, we're going to pass on him because he's too small to play. Oh, yeah? Doesn't look like he's too small to play now.
And to add to your point, Tone, Golden State since when has Golden State been a destiny? Golden State has always been Golden State. It's not like they moved from Iowa to Los Angeles. It's always been in the Bay Area. And the Bay Area is
Well, they
always
did. Listen, as someone who lived there, they did move. No offense to Oakland, but they did move to the nicer
right.
side of the
I mean,
bridge.
they did move on the other side of the bridge, but they still in the Bay Area. So it's always been the Golden State Warriors. And with that being said, I think they won one playoff series. I'm sorry, before Steph Curry got there and they beat Denver in 2014, they had won one playoff series in 25 years. And the reason why is because nobody wanted to go there. They kept getting it wrong with the drafts. They kept getting it wrong in free agency. So it's not like Golden State automatically became this hot place to be. It's always been Golden State.
Yeah. Other than maybe that We Believe season, which was fantastic to watch, but other than that, yeah, they are. So speaking of Golden State, so they're in the next tier. So these are the guys that are who had the play-in game. So we had San Antonio with a down year, and they've made some moves, right? Letting DeMar DeRozan go in free agency. Obviously, Golden State, Memphis, and my beloved Lakers. Mm-hmm. So I think I'll just start and say I think the Lakers now shoot to one of the top 2-3 seeds, right, this year. Again, assuming healthy. Let me put that out there. I probably should have started with this. We have to assume the team stays healthy, because if you lose your best player, all bets are off. But other than, and I hope you agree, the Lakers taking a jump, Memphis, Golden State, San Antonio, any of them up, down?
I think San Antonio goes the other way.
Yeah,
this season I do. Losing DeRozan, bringing in Collins from Portland, that was their splash in the offseason. So they basically building it around Murray. Patty Mills is gone, so they're obviously in rebuild mode in San Antonio, because Patty Mills was the only one left from that championship unit. He was the only one who was left. So now he's gone. So they're clearly rebuilding. So I think that I don't know how much longer Pop sticks around either.
That was going to be my question. That was going to be my question. Does he want to? And maybe he does. Maybe that the kind of rebuild after all those years of title expectations. Maybe he says, "Hey, I want to end my career building from scratch." I personally don't think so, Tone, but I don't know him. So,
Tone, when you're rebuilding a unit, man, it takes a lot. It's a lot of years, and it's a lot that goes into that. And, Pop is over 70 years old. Pop's been doing this for decades. And this is a guy who, I'm not going to say that the game, like his coaching style, is outdated, but and you're a tech guy, you can appreciate this, his software is becoming obsolete. And
I was going to say, Team USA, we heard rumblings, whether they were true or not, about the San Antonio offense, and KD was upset that he told him, "Hey, this isn't your show. We're running the San Antonio offense." Right? Is he getting to that point where, use the software that the software needs an update?
Yeah, I think that's why I'm not sure if Pop sticks around too much longer. I'd be surprised I wouldn't be surprised in the next 2 or 3 years if I saw Pop retire. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. Or maybe just
move to the front office.
Yeah, maybe move into the front office. Memphis, Jaren Jackson Jr. is the guy who's going to be the difference in whatever it is that they're doing, because him being healthy is huge for them. He got to take the jump this year because he's already shown promise as a rookie. He got hurt last year. This year, which he's going to be healthy. So now you got him, Ja, and Brooks, who Brooks actually reminds me of Tony Allen, a lesser version defensively, but I think he can be that good. He can get better offensively, but I think that his strength will be on the defensive side of the ball. Ja, I'd like to see him become a better defender, but I do think that Memphis team is right around that play-in spot between 7 and 10. I don't think that they move higher than that, but I do think that they get better as a unit. I do think that. And the third team you talked about was Memphis, San Antonio.
Golden State. We talked about the Lakers jump at Golden State.
Golden State. Now, you and I just talked about John Wall over the last 2 years where he wasn't healthy. Well, you bring Clay into this mix, who Clay doesn't do a lot of on-ball things. Clay's a long ball shooter, and he's a defender. That's who Clay is. So I don't think in terms of health, that's going to be an issue. What I'm looking for from Clay is I'm looking for Clay to be able just to hold up. Because he can still shoot the long ball. That's who Clay is. He can still shoot the long ball. And if he could continue to do that and he can hold up, I think Golden State's going to be right back in the middle of it. I do think that their champion, I think I said this to you already, I think that their championship window has closed, but I do think that they'll be competitive in the Western Conference. I do feel like that.
All right, here's the 6 teams now that kind of led the Western Conference last year. We had, starting from number 6, Portland. Let's start. We'll break it up into 3s. Portland, Dallas, and the Clippers. Do they take a step up or back?
I wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers didn't make, not the Clippers, I'm sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if Portland didn't make the playoffs this year. That wouldn't surprise me one bit because, losing Carmelo, that even though that may not be a big deal, but I mean, that's still 15 a game that's out of your lineup. CJ McCullough has averaged over 20 a game, but that unit, they haven't done anything substantial to upgrade that unit. Tone, 2019 was the time to do something with that unit when they went to the Western Conference Championship and they got swept. Okay, we might not be close to winning it, but we're not that far from competing for it. So instead, what they do is they do nothing and they run it back. Then they go in the bubble and they lose in the first round. And then last year, they get a bad draw and they lose in the first round again. So we're going the other way and they still haven't done anything. I mean, Norman Powell, who I love, I think he's going to be good for them. I think they extended him. I think they extended him, so he's going to be really good for them. CJ is going to be good for them. I wouldn't be surprised though if Portland did not make the playoffs. And I know that, and if they did, I don't see them any higher than a 7-8.
I don't dislike any of these players. In fact, I love Dame. But if your backcourt consists of Dame, CJ, and Norm, there seems to be redundancy there, and that's what worries me, because what else do you have? You get rid of, now you bring in a new coach, new system, I'm assuming. You get rid of one of your veteran kind of good, role play. Carmelo became a really good role player, right?
Absolutely.
And you need those guys. Mm-hmm. So you lose that, and you have this backcourt that just makes me nervous that I'm not like, I know CJ's a bucket, but I don't know that he's the number 2 guy on a team that can go to the finals.
We already saw that, Tom. We already saw it. We already saw it in 2019 when they got swept out the Western Conference Finals. We saw that. So
I'm very worried about Dallas. I think they end up in the same kind of situation where they're 5, 6 seed kind of thing. But I'm worried about Dallas because I still don't think Doncic has help. And if you put that much, look, I get it. He's a pro's pro, but he's still a young guy. You put that much weight on him, I don't know that he's able to carry that load. He needs help. Totally. So that's what worries me about Dallas.
That's where I disagree with you at, because I don't think that we have established what we're doing offensively with this unit. I understand that Luka Doncic is the primary ball handler. He's the primary distributor. What are we doing with KP? What are we doing with Porzingis? We have no idea. This guy is a 20-8 guy, and he's asking, what are you guys doing with me? Well, that's the reason why he doesn't look like that, because I don't know what I'm doing here. And we already know Tim Hardaway is one of the best D&3 guys. We have him established. Finney Smith, we have him established. You still don't have a primary rebounder. You still don't have a primary defender on the wing that's going to lock down. Like, I would love Lou Dort in Dallas. He'd be great for them. Oh, my God, he would be fantastic with them. But that's something different. I think Dallas takes a step back. And the reason why I think Dallas takes a step back, because we still haven't established what we're doing offensively with Luka and with Porzingis. And it's not that Porzingis can't play. Once again, he was 20-8 last year. That's like, and I'll put it in football references, where with your Bears, and you got your best wideout who just came off a 1,200-yard season, and he comes to the Bears and he's got 300 yards, and he's asking, "Yo, how are you guys using me? What's going on? What's the story?"
Yeah. So in your, and like I said, I still think they're good enough to keep that kind of 6 seed. But you think Dallas let's say Dallas and Portland go down into the playoff, and we're talking Lakers and Golden State kind of take their place up in these
Yes,
top
sir.
six. Okay, so let's end with the top. Did we talk about the Clippers? Well, we talked about the Clippers, so
We
we're
did
good
talk
there.
about the Clippers.
Let's talk about the three who finished at the top: Denver, Phoenix, Utah. So Denver probably gets better if Jamal Murray comes back healthy.
Mm-hmm.
We're assuming he is.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix, I got to be honest with you. I'm surprised. I did not think they were going to give Chris Paul a contract because historically, that's not what Phoenix does.
No.
That's not what Phoenix does. So I'm actually I'm very surprised that they kept him there. So I'm curious to get your thoughts there. And then obviously Utah.
Well, Tom, what's the alternative in Phoenix if you let Chris Paul walk?
Oh, I know they had to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just, hey, listen, you tell me, you'll show me who you are. So when I watch you do something consistently for 30 years, then yeah, my expectation is you're going to do the same thing. So that's why I say it surprised me because 5 years ago, they wouldn't have done that. They would have let him walk and said, oh, we'll find a young guy to replace him.
Right. Now, I thought that price tag was a little high. I was really surprised about that contract in terms of the numbers.
Were you though? Because he was guaranteed, what was it, 40 for next year?
Yeah.
So all they did was, they took it and kind of, they gave him more, obviously, but they stretched it over. And that's really what it was. It was a lifetime achievement award, if you ask me.
That's what I think it was. It was thank you money. And it was thank you money, kind of like what the Bulls did with Jordan in 1996. It was thank you money, only except Jordan was still really, really good. So it wasn't like it was a situation where, Mike, we're going to pay you this, or like the Lakers did with Kobe at the end of his career. This was thank you money. Except Jordan was still really, really good. And Kobe was on the other side. But Chris Paul obviously is still really, really good. I mean, 22-8 in the finals. Now, I was surprised that he was able to hold up. But Phoenix, their idea here is this is it. So we probably got another year window with this. So they ran it back, basically.
Yeah.
They basically ran it back.
If you go to the finals and you are that close and you figure, hey, now here's a big if Chris Paul can stay healthy again for a whole playoff run, that's what makes me nervous because he hasn't done it before. Mm-hmm. You're assuming that Ayton's going to take a step forward. You're assuming that Booker's going to take a step forward because look, he showed signs of, I don't like to say choke because he didn't choke, but he showed signs of big moments, didn't play his best, right? He didn't handle double teams that well. When the defensive pressure was on, he kind of disappeared a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking, hey, we're going to work on that. And you have to run it back. I think you do. And that's what they're doing because their window is small, especially in the West, because they're thinking this. They didn't know what the Lakers were doing. They didn't know, what kind of team they were going to put together. They were make a trade for Westbrook. They thought, hey, we're still in this. So I think they had to do it. I don't think Chris Paul is there the entirety of that contract.
I don't think so either.
But I think they had to do it because if they didn't, I think they'd lose a lot of face. The good thing about Chris Paul is the style of play. He's not like a high flyer who, he's a Tom. I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady, but hear me out. He's like a Tom Brady quarterback where, look, you're not worried about him getting out and scrambling. So he's going to be in the pocket. He's going to make the right play, right? Low impact kind of guy. So I think he can play a few extra years longer than most because of that style of play.
Yeah, that's fair because I look at a guy like Chris Paul who I do what I do. And I think that he has another 2 years, another year, maybe two at this level before not before he slows down, but before I think he's over.
Yeah.
And with that being said, he stays exactly where he is. This is my game. I'm not going to get involved in the high flying. I'm not going to get into the fast paced, high flying, athletic point guards like Ja Morant. I'm not going to get into that. No, I do what I do. Yeah. And this is what's made me who I am to this point. So I'm not surprised about that at all. Now, when you talk about Utah, Tone, I'm not convinced that they that far away. I'm not, man. I look at that group, and I don't know if they beat the Clippers if Mike Conley is healthy, but I think that that's a different series. And the reason why I think it's a different series because you give them a different look. Because now Mitchell doesn't have to play on the ball as much. You got a primary distributor in Mike Conley. You got another playmaker on the floor. You got another guy who defends on the perimeter. Rudy is who Rudy is. Rudy's a rim runner. Rudy's a pick and roll guy. And Rudy is a rim diver. That's who Rudy is.
Yeah, I think when he got paid, people thought he was going to change his game because
Everybody thought he was gonna be
he got
Shaq.
paid.
They thought they were seeing Shaquille O'Neal because he got paid. I'm like, wait a minute, yo, Rudy is 14 a game for his career. Let's relax on Rudy turning into Hakeem Olajuwon because he's getting paid. No. That's not gonna happen. Now, they got their guys in O'Neal, who's a defender on the wing. They got the best and the second best bench players in Clarkson and Ingles. So I like what I don't think Utah's that far away, man. I just think that they need to put it together. That's the biggest thing with them. I don't think that they're that far away.
I'm going to be honest. You asked me about 29 teams in the NBA, and I will give you a solid answer of what I think they are and what I think of them. Utah's the one team out of the 30 where I can honestly say, I scratched my head. They finished first in the West, and I still don't know if they're good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I still don't know if they're for real. I don't know if it's a good mix of players and the style of play. I feel like I didn't believe in them early, and then when I started to believe in them, they kind of let me down. So I stopped, and the second I stopped believing in them, they started playing well. I'm gonna watch them closer, I think, this year than I've ever watched a Utah Jazz team because I just couldn't grasp them, and it drove me nuts. And I still feel that way about them today. I still don't know.
It's a situation with Utah where they win all of these games and they got one guy who's a superstar in Donovan Mitchell, and then they got an elite defender. But you're thinking to yourself, Utah could either go to the NBA Finals or they could get bounced in round one.
Yeah, I don't. And think about this. Even their superstar Donovan Mitchell, people don't even want to call him a superstar.
No,
they don't even want. He would just think about this. In almost every year, the MVP is, statistically you have to have the stats, but it's the best player on the best team. Did you hear any talk about Donovan Mitchell as MVP?
Not one.
Not one person brought up his name, nope. And he's the best player on the best team, putting up the best numbers.
Yes, he was.
The first time in history I've ever not even one person to say, "Hey, don't forget Donovan Mitchell." Nope. It was like they were an afterthought. Yeah, it was like they were an afterthought. It was just like, yeah, they're gonna win the West this year, but like record wise. But yeah, don't worry about them.
Yeah, he didn't get a sniff. That was incredible.
So strange to me. So that's it for this week of Fluent and Chill. Don't forget to check in Friday for Fluent and Chill football, and every Monday, 8 p.m. live on TikTok. Join the conversation. Jay,
take a light. Take it.